comment, which is really apropos. People don't leave companies generally, they leave their manager. Because the manager isn't giving them a chance to do what they want to do, which is to grow in some way, and that's the truth. And so the answer is the leaders and subordinates is the fundamental building block of how we're going to change it, because the two of them can work together. What makes this also challenging is today you can actually have a supervisor, the boss, who's younger by a lot of years than the other, and that makes the understanding even more complicated. So there's poor communication with other people. And the bad news is we all go into our cliques, and we stay with our cliques, and we don't kind of interact with other people. So we don't get a chance to listen and learn unless we've done the right thing to talk about. So there's poor communication. And it's probably the single biggest thing, and we'll talk about that again, something Tom Peters says. There's a lack of engagement, and that's because we haven't provided growth opportunities. For those companies who don't, and most of them fit that, that's the problem. But for those who do, wow, these people will kill for it. And as the net result is a lack of collaboration and teamwork. And so, say here, Tom Peters in his most recent book, for those of you who may have read his original book, Search of Excellence, he's written a new book called The Excellence Dividend. And he makes a comment in there that we all think technical is important, but you read IBM, you read Google, all the studies they do will come up with the same thing. The technical stuff's easy, okay? What's hard is the soft stuff, the thinking, the planning, the coordinating. So he says the hard is soft and the soft is hard, and we have to learn that, and that's really the key. And that's a whole management technique that we as managers have to learn, because we weren't paying attention. I gave you a memo, I told you what to do, I asked you if you knew it, you said yes. That's it, I assume you got it. I just recently, because I run Presentation Excellence, helped the presenter, I said, that's exactly what you did, and no one understood, I can tell you in that room, and that's why later on you got all the wrong answer, because you didn't ask the question in a way to get the right answer. And that's what we had to do. The result is we're losing quality, in productivity, and innovation. Now, the reason I make this point about the stereotypes is because first we're all people. We're all different. And again, depends who your parents are, depends on the group you're in. There was a study done many years ago about hockey players, and what they were taking, a study, and they looked at hockey players and trying to figure out what makes for a great hockey player. And they discovered the answer is the best hockey players were born in January. Yeah. And the worst were born in December. Got it? Why? Because one's bigger than the other. He's a year older, but they're in the same class. And that's why, that's what it is. And think about it, when you grew up, what month were you born in? And think of some of the people that were there. So it's, a lot of it has to do with that. So this is one of the many profiles that we analyze, which takes a look at, for example, early boomers and late boomers. So it divides it up. And the reason for that value is it makes the point of saying, if I was born in 1950, let's assume I'm born around 1950 and I'm 17 and 18 and I'm going to go to Vietnam, that's a really important part of me. But if I'm born in 1963, 64, okay, Vietnam was past already by the time I had my formative years. So it doesn't really affect you in the same way. So what happens is we have to understand that within this group, they're not going to be the same. And most important, a person who's born at 63 and 64, we call them two different generations. We don't go by the years and the labels, because the answer is they have more in common because they were born at 64 than they're going to have with someone who's born in 1950. Okay? So it's part of it. But the second part, you can see that so obviously, because what this study did is it looked at what are the key values that you have. So if you take a look at it, love is important for everybody. It doesn't change a whole lot. They want to be loved. We all want to be loved. We all want to love. It becomes more important because there's nothing else in here that's there, but look at happiness. Happiness keeps growing in importance. Okay? Well, think of our affluence of our society. It's changed it, okay? It's a whole different world than what we're doing. And it just become more important to these people. But it's still one of the basic values. And again, we all make trade-offs in values. That's what balance is about, and the short and long-term difference. So the real issue is to understand everyone's got basically the same values, and it's not significant differences. The priorities are different because of the life experiences, which means you need to talk to people. You need to ask them, what's their life experience? Where's their value? What's their example? When they tell you a story, what are they looking at? And how do you get that? And that's so important. How many of you have ever heard of DISC? D-I-S-C? Okay. So for those of you who don't, so DISC is a personality profile concept. It's been used in many different places, and it basically talks about 4 different personalities. D is for dominant, which is someone who's command and control, influences. You're trying to work together through influence, okay, how you're influencing other people. The S is social, person who wants everyone to be peaceful, and C is compliance, making sure everything is right. So we just had a speaker, and it's what got me thinking about it. I try to link everything I do, who actually has been doing this since 2010 about animals. So your D is an eagle. Your influencer is a parrot. Talks to everybody. Tries to influence you by what he's saying. The dove, okay, is your support person, piece. And your owl, the wise owl who's got it doing right, so to speak, is your C. The point is, if you watch Star Trek, for those of you, I grew up with Star Trek, you have the same thing in the sense of different characters. Why is that important? Because those characteristics are there, but they also will affect what these values are, and they will apply it in different places. And that's where it becomes really important. So it overrides it. So you will find today the reaction against command and control of the traditionalists, and that the boomers reacted, means that most people after that are saying, no, I don't want to be a D. I want to be an influence. I want some more peace and quiet. And if I don't want to be the person who's influencing everybody, I think we have thought leaders, we have Facebook influencers, we have LinkedIn influencers. It's our culture. You would not have had that 50, 60 years ago. So part of understanding this culture and how it changes and what we're looking for in these people. So, the key thing to make this point really well is how destructive all of this can be. We have mandatory retirement in some countries. We have encouraged retirement in this country. We talk about it as if it exists. And the only time, if you go to Age Brilliantly, we don't talk about that word because it's irrelevant. It's not the way we look at it. But here's a great example. So again, I teach business strategy and I teach aging. And so in doing that, I pulled together a number of studies. So here's 6 different values people come up with. And the question being, these are 6 common stereotypes about older workers. Okay? And a meta-study means a study of studies, looked at 418 of them, and finds that 5 of them are wrong. And the only one that's right is the one we have total control in changing, and it's our fault. And that's this one. They're less willing to go into training and career because we told them, you're only going to be here for another year or 2, so why bother learning? Okay, and that's really what it is. In the companies that have given these people longer career paths, you can do different things, you can do it, they're just as active in training and developing. So again, it's a function of the culture and the atmosphere we set up to determine what they're going to get. So what are the causes then for all of these different real challenges we have? Again, our personalities are different, our communication styles are different, okay? I'm going to tell you what to do it, versus, can we agree this is where we want to come, etc. So how we talk to people, think of it, I deal with sales or marketing a lot, in the older generations, we didn't have texting and things, so how do you get some client on the phone? You get them on the phone, and you talk to them. And if it's important, you do it immediately. And if you can, you do it face to face, okay? Somebody who's grown up with having a phone in front of them all the time just isn't going to think of it that way. So it's a different world, okay? And it doesn't make it right or wrong. That's, again, the stereotype. The question is it effective or not? And so I work with my kids, and early on I said, you can send me texts all you want to, but if it's urgent, and I'm not looking, is that going to help you? Yeah. Okay, and that's communication changes it. The level of speaking out, think of Cheryl over at Facebook talking about leaning in. This whole concept, how much are we accepting authority, how much are we willing to stand up for it? Okay? The good part in many cases is today's generations are willing to stand up, which is why they don't feel engaged, because we haven't engaged them. So they're saying, get me involved. And yes, they feel so underused that they do sometimes will overcompensate and go, I have the answer, I know I'm only here 6 months, but I know the answer to everything. They don't really. You sit down and say, you really know it? No. But they just want to be able to be at the table having the conversation. Leadership styles change. Their expectancies are because of stereotypes. And we feed that in the aging world. Everyone who says, oh, I'm old and I'm not going to be around much longer and I can't do it, we have fed that. Dory Mincer has this whole concept that We should remember that we are all aging, so when we are where we use an ageist thing, we discriminate against ourselves. It's the only ism where we discriminate against ourselves. And so the old rules don't work. So as I mentioned to you, bosses today increasingly are no longer older necessarily than some of the people who are working for them. So how do you change this? Okay? This is a long thing. If you were all in HR, I could spend 4 hours on this. And since most of you are not HR, I was not my focus, but just to give you one. The first thing is we need to appreciate diversity. We've done that in terms of ethnic, we've done that in terms of race, we have not done that in ageism. We have not taken a look at older people and realizing it. And yet every study shows you get better innovation when you've got diversity in it. Okay? It's just all kinds of things. I was just talking about yesterday a really interesting study that came out. So you know Netflix, how many of you use Netflix? Okay. So you know it makes recommendations. Amazon does that, everybody does that. So there's a company called Gaggle right now, which actually goes out and does these studies for other people. When Netflix first did it, what it wanted to do is, it had a contest, could you raise the accuracy of the predictions by 10%? That was the goal. It was a big contest. That and every other one that's ever been done all had the same findings. They first give it out to the industry, people who are experts in doing this thing, and they get their answer. And then after a week or two, they say, let's open the door just to anybody who wants to look at it. 99% of the time, the winning person, winning team, teams, are people not even in the industry. Right. Because they come out with a completely different idea. So they're working on a chemical thing and a physicist has an answer, okay? It's been amazing to watch this process. That's why I'm saying diversity at all levels, okay, is going to come up with an answer. Acknowledge that there are differences, okay? Put that on the table right off the bat. There are differences, but the answer is they're not the stereotype differences. They're people differences, and let's get to know each other and put that. So you focus on where's commonalities, and then you encourage appreciation of the diversity. You resist using stereotypes. Call people out on it. You know, in many places in the old days when people were using bad language or something, they'd have a little dish in the middle. Every time someone used a curse word, they had to put $1 in there. Okay? That concept, call people out on ageism as well as everything else. Focus on what are people's strengths and weaknesses. So it's a really important part now is to sit down and say, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Like I say, I don't do ballet and I don't do ice skating, so don't ask me to help you on that. And then embrace ongoing learning opportunities. That's the reason we've had this thing, because we haven't done that. We saved it for young people, we should have it for everybody, because the world keeps changing. So we have to create a culture then of collaboration. What does that mean? Open communication. Intergenerational teams. This whole point of cliques, okay, that people stay with people who are like themselves is the most destructive part of the workplace. We need to go out of our way to integrate these groups so that people can see it and hear it and go, oh my God, you're not like my father or mother. You really understand what the world is all about. Whoa! Hey, this is cool. Discourage stereotypes, including in the diversity programs. Many of them really don't have active inclusions in those programs. And there are all kinds of activities to do that. Encourage two-way mentoring. So there's a new phrase in this industry called reverse mentoring, where they're saying, you know, that younger people will teach the digital stuff to older people. I don't like that. My whole point is mentoring is across. People should be mentoring at all ages to all people, because the answer is we all have a different experience and expertise. So I come in, and that's what we did at this nonprofit, is we would have these novices come in, they'd immediately be teamed with a middle manager person in another division, but that understood what that was. So if you were an accountant, you worked with data. Okay? If you were in editorial, you might have worked with marketing, because you're learning writing. To common out to open up new careers, and it's a two-way mentoring process. And we knew, I remember when Fran called me and says, Jerry, you're not going to believe it, we got 6 people into the program, they want to be mentors. That's the point. They wanted to be mentors. We didn't have to solicit them. Create a growth focus. Again, that growth mindset is very important. Make people understand the learning skills for themselves. And we're giving them a chance to learn it here. They'll want to stay because they love what you're doing for them. And the same thing for older people. Give them an opportunity. You will not be pushed out. There is no encouragement that if you're over a certain age, you shouldn't be here. So our goal ultimately is to have an integrated workforce, okay, mutual understanding, effective communication. What's great about that is, in today's day and age, the best way to get good workers is having other people in the place saying how great your company is. That's why Glassdoor has become so famous, because of the positives and the negatives. The point is, if people are saying, I love working for my company, you're going to get people saying, I'm looking for a job. This tight economy, you can give a lot of money to recruiters, and they still don't succeed any more than like 60 to 40, as opposed to 50. 50 is not a big difference. But people internally will make the right referrals. So it's great for recruitment and retention. Provide motivation around what people want to grow on. So we sit down right now, we've developed an entirely new system. As you can see, I balance both things. It's called Ebalance to Win. It's a system that Jack Welch bought into because it's a great system, but we do it at a one-to-one job thing. When we sit down and say, what is your job? What are your expectations to grow? And part of every review, and every review can be every week, every month, every quarter, or every year, is based on how much your job changes. How do we help you grow? And that's the single biggest driver, making people grow. There's an article I shared this morning with some of my members from yesterday that I read. I couldn't remember where it was. It was about Jeff Bezos talking about Amazon, and he says, we don't have quarterly and annual evaluations. It's ongoing. It's all the time. And everyone said, but that's what you're doing with the Val to Win. I go, exactly. And that's the whole point. It increases engagement, you get superior teamwork, and that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're all about, because that's going to lead to enhanced productivity, more profit. The key for us to understand is talent is ageless. That's why you can be, so the single biggest entrepreneur group today are older people, not younger people. Think about it. They have experience, they know what people want, they've got time, they've got money, they're not trying to pay off $250,000 in college debt. That's why they're voting to do it. We may hero the other people, but they're not the biggest group that's actually doing it. The critical part for us to understand, if talent really is ageless, what are some of the opportunities that we're missing out on older people? And that's kind of where I want to drive this for all of us. Let's understand what our workforce is. It's you. It's us. It's all of us. We want to stay fit and active. Nobody wants to be sitting in a nursing home unable to move around at 27 or at 62 or 80. Okay, nobody does. We all want to be up and around doing things. So how do we do that? We have to understand that for most people, they're going to stay as active as they can because their work provides identity. That's part of our society. Work provides identity. So if they leave where they go, suddenly they sit home, what am I going to do? You know, the old saying goes, you got married for better, for worse, but not to be home for lunch. Okay? So how do you keep people busy? Maintain social relations. So again, if I work for a company full-time, and now I only come in a couple days a week, or I come in a couple months, or I work on critical boards, I'm still involved, I have my identity, I'm incentivized to keep my expertise growing, okay? So I can make a bigger difference, all of that helps. People want to live with a purpose, so we have another presentation we've recently launched called The Intersection Between Purpose and Passion. That's the single biggest way of understanding everybody in every generation, because everyone's got it. We all want to do something with purpose, and we all want to do what we're passionate about. So it's our skill set. Okay? And if they stay at work, what's great about it is they can save more money. It's a financial planning tool. So it's a hidden way of helping everybody in many different ways. So why should we hire older workers? Because they understand politics. Okay? I run into lots of financial planners who I work with, and they give me stories, you know, I'm planning on retiring in a year or two, and I'm going to sit to the younger people on my team and give them my clients. And then I get calls from the younger people a year or two later and say, you know, we have a real problem. A lot of people aren't staying here. Well, they didn't have the same relationship bad with the other person. It's about relationships, okay? So just because you're on the team, if you haven't done a really good job of making that introduction, it's not going to work. People like consistency. They want personal attention. Expertise. We develop our skills of what we do. Think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay? Great lady, great lawyer, inspiration, Supreme Court. That expertise is priceless. So it doesn't matter how old she is as long as she can go. And in her case, she's going to stay till Trump is out. If she can, that's her job. And that's an expertise of her thought process. Again, it's not what we do, which is what we write about, what we do our interviews for, what we screen for, but ask Google, ask IBM, and every one of their studies from their HR, they come down to, it's not so much the what, it's the how. Gallup did a study, it was called Strength Finder, and asked a whole bunch of questions to predict engagement, and the single 12 questions control 88% of the answer. But the single biggest one is the first one, which says, I know what's expected of me every day. Okay, and think about that. If if you come in and you don't know what you're doing, you feel lost to start off. Where's your morale, okay? And that's a critical part. So it's the how more than the what. This is the hardest, soft, and